Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the show where members of Team MagicJank get together and we talk about the latest happenings in Magic the Gathering. Over the last couple of weeks, things have been a little slow, and that is not the case this week, so we are very excited to dive into a couple of topics. So I'm joined, as often, not quite always, but just about at this point, by Carlo C. Farfado Jr. Carlo, how you doing, bud?
Hello, doing very good. How about yourself?
No complaints, man. No complaints. And we actually have a first-time guest on the show, which we are very happy to have. HeadologyMagic on Twitch and all the places. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Oh, I'm sick, so forgive my nasally madness.
No, you're good. Yeah. Thank you so much for fighting through it. You know, playing hurt as it were, and coming out and joining us. We really appreciate it.
Is potato.
Absolutely. So if you're not familiar with Headology's work, she's definitely big in Limited, which, as you notice, a lot of our normal hosts are not necessarily. So we definitely wanted to get a Limited enthusiast perspective on some of the topics that we're going to be discussing today. So definitely looking forward to that. But before we dive into the meat of the episode, we do want to give a quick shout out to the namesake of the show, MagicJank.com, the online marketplace where you can buy and sell Magic the Gathering cards as well as merchandise. And also, fun fact, members of Team MagicJank have merch available on MagicJank. So if you're like, hey, I would really love like a playmat or a mug with these folks' logos on it, check it out, MagicJank.com. We got you covered.
Have that.
I don't
and
know,
MagicJank is really kind about how well it sponsors us. It really cares about the team, so we really appreciate it.
Yeah,
and we appreciate everybody who buys from them. Therefore, that they continues to support us.
Absolutely, yes. If you've ever made a purchase at MagicJank, thank you. You're awesome. We appreciate you. And if you're considering doing it in the future, thank you. We appreciate you too.
Agreed.
All right. Awesome. So the first thing that we want to talk about today, I honestly, looking at our show notes and planning out this one, there aren't as many topics as we oftentimes cover. This one, there's one big change to the way that Magic is going to be distributed moving forward. This is going to be starting next year with, I believe it's Murders at Karlov Manor, is going to be the first set where this will go into effect. And they are changing the way that boosters are going to be represented. So over the last couple of years, boosters have taken on a lot of different shapes and sizes. We have draft boosters, we have set boosters, we have collector boosters. There have been the aftermath boosters, the epilogue boosters, as they've been known. I feel like there are just dozens and dozens of different kinds of boosters. And Wizards has decided to consolidate the draft boosters and set boosters into one product called the Play Booster, which is going to be, honestly, more similar to a set booster than a draft booster. But the draft booster, as we know it today, is going to be sunset. And technically, I suppose the set booster, as we know it today, is going to be rotating out as well. And this new booster, it's going to be a thing. So as you can imagine, we definitely wanted Headology here to discuss this because from a collector's perspective, these boosters are very similar to the set boosters already. And so things won't be changing much. Like if you're currently buying singles or if you're buying a couple of set boosters here and there, now you just say, hey, I want a booster of the set instead of, so, okay, sure. But from a limited perspective, as you can imagine, the draft booster has been the mainstay in Magic since its inception 30 years ago. I mean, what we know as the draft booster today was just known as a booster for the majority of Magic's lifetime.
Expert level Magic.
Yeah. And so the new booster, they're going to be, it is going to be draftable. We're going to have, so the first 6 slots are going to be commons. There's going to be a slot that is either the list or a common in the 7th slot. Slots 8 through 10 are uncommons. There's going to be a rare or mythic in the 11th slot. There's going to be 1 basic land. There's going to be a non-foil wild card, a foil wild card, and then a add token or helper art card. And they've led, in their little announcement and their marketing for this, they've led with the fact that you could get up to 4 rares total, which a lot of people seem to be making a really big stink about. So I got to ask, and I mean, Headology, we brought you on for this, so I got to just lead off with you. Big picture, how does this impact, especially limited players, like folks who go to their LGS to draft right now? How is this going to change things?
So there's so much that it's gonna. So before I'll get into that. We'll talk about how they've claimed they've claimed to have rebalanced, limited for Markov, right?
Okay, yeah.
and say that it will be a fine experience for drafting in limited. They claim to have adjusted things such that it will work. I have my doubts. But I wanted to start off with, the reason that they give multiple reasons for doing this. Number one was that local stores were having difficulty, accommodating new customers, for example, because new customers are like, what do I buy? Do I buy a draft booster or do I buy a set booster? And it makes it easier for everyone when there's one product to give them. There still isn't going to be one product, though, because there's still collector boosters. And commander decks and all the sorts of other things. So that argument to me seems a little wishy-washy. Not wishy-washy, but more like weak.
Yeah.
It's not flipping, it's just weak. That seems an odd thing to claim. I do get it though, like minimizing the product is a nice way to streamline sales to some degree. Minimizing the types of product. Especially for new players. That didn't seem to be a concern for them before when they introduced the set booster, though. So I don't know why it's a concern now. I do know, but I think it's a problem of their own making. So we had the booster, for so long, and the boosters were ways in which you could pick up, like, basically you could get into a draft and hope to pick up that Snapcaster that you wanted, right? That was a chase card, and you might get it for just the cost of the draft, right? And you might win the draft and get more prizes. Everybody was going to local game stores to draft. It wasn't only Commander and which came about later, and then it wasn't only Commander or just like pick up games. It was definitely drafts, right? You would go and you'd hang out with your friends, you'd draft, you'd play, and you might win prizes at FNMs. It was big. I used to draft all the time at my local game store. Now, the change sort of happened for multiple reasons, I think. Number one, they introduced the set booster. That was a way that they targeted collectors by saying, okay, look, you pay a little more, you get a better ratio of rares to commons and uncommons, right? You get more uncommons even than commons, as opposed to a normal, right? X number plus 3 plus 1, right? 3 uncommons, 1 rare, and the rest are commons. And so they actually targeted the collectors, but that pulled the collectors away from the drafters as well, right? Because the collectors said, I don't want to invest in the draft, I want to invest in that. Because it had a better EV in theory. It had fewer packs, but better in EV in theory. Having opened both types, I'm not sure it actually worked out to be that way, but I think it might have. I'd have to look at the numbers. But it seems fair. And so you already get a slight split. You already get a split at focus on drafters versus collectors, right? You would start to pull away. You might be more likely to pick up that card that you wanted if you just really invest in or go halvesies on a set booster box rather than go a draft with your friends. And so draft boosters for me, they contained a lot of special cards too. So if you were just trying to collect the regular set to be able to play in standard and not worry about foils and special cards, that was actually harder to do with a set box than a draft box sometimes. So there were things like that. Now the draft boxes were balanced for limited play. Always balanced for limited play. There was a good mix of colors. There was a good mix of, and then there were the regular mix of, rare, possible foil, 3 uncommons, and then the rest, right? And the set boosters were not balanced like that. The set boosters actually tailored themselves. They had a theme in the commons. They had fewer commons and more uncommons, and then they had maybe a couple rares, right, or mythics. And up to like 3 or 4, I think, something like that.
I think in a set booster,
Yeah.
in the current set boosters, I believe it is possible to open 4 rares or mythics, but it's not likely.
It's not
'Cause there's,
likely.
like the foil slot, the list slot.
It's rare, haha.
Yeah.
But yes,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 exactly. So so when you have the opportunity, so you have 4, you might get up to 4, so that's great. So but those you cannot draft with. There's no way on earth you can draft with. It makes for a miserable limited experience, as they say on their article introducing this. So Maro's article entitled what are play boosters, does in fact suggest that playing, limited with set boosters is miserable. Does
There it
actually
is,
say that.
right there. No, no argument there.
And when we start, if you ever tried to draft with set boosters, you were not in for a good time. There were too many rares. There weren't enough of the commons and uncommons for the synergies to play out for it to be an interesting limited game. And they were all themed basically, so you would have maybe 2 colors in your commons as opposed to 5. So plus colorless, and anyway. So
yeah, and there's also the list.
They were not meant for this.
Yeah, the list wasn't designed with limited in mind at all. Some of the reprints that were on some of those,
either.
holy cow.
They
were,
and the commander slots that you could get.
The commanders,
in
that's
a
right.
set booster.
Yeah, there were commander slots. There were also things, and so set boosters, as they came along, like I said, they divided the 2 things. There was another factor that meant that people, like, I would go to stores and you would always get a draft going. Always. And I went to like 6 stores around the LA area regularly. There was always a draft going. And sometimes multiple, right? That wasn't necessarily where the stores made lots of money, but the people being in the stores, creating that community, buying food and drink, and snacks and things like that, and telling their friends to come and be there, and buying the new card for their commander deck when they play, when they're not drafting, right?
And let's not forget about people drafting and then afterwards selling singles to the store, which gave the store singles to sell to the constructed players.
Absolutely.
Which relatively doesn't exist anymore.
Amazing point. Exactly. And so not only were people drafting for themselves, they were drafting to trade, right? They were drafting to sell to the store. They were giving the draft chaff to the store as well, where the store could pick through and find anything of value and then sell the bulk.
Yep.
So there was another factor that led to this just dying out, in addition to the set boosters, which was the pandemic. People stopped going to the store and doing draft because you were literally handling a bunch of cards, handing it to the next person, and then you're all touching the same things. We touch our faces so frequently. It's just a thing. Got an itch? There we go. So when that occurred, people weren't able to go to their game stores to do this anymore, and so that was a loss of revenue for the draft boosters. The draft boosters aren't going anywhere. And finally, Arena came to prominence. And Arena is a really quick way to ensure that even if you don't have 8 players right in the store physically, you just draft online. And the league format of it means that, yes, the games can be very imbalanced because one pool could have been opened that was much stronger in one pod than another, but it's still much more, you pay for that with convenience of being able to draft whenever you wish and enter a queue and go for it, right? So those are the factors that led to the draft boosters becoming less and less common as requests to be pulled off that shelf, right? And so we have a bunch of factors there. The pandemic was the biggest, of course, but once the pandemic subsided, people started wanting to be together again, right? And one of the ways they did that was Commander, of course. But the drafts, people miss the drafts. And so people are drafting again. But the problem is that the stores got so used to selling the set boosters still, because people would still come in and pick up, or have it left outside for them and pick up their set boosters, right? But the stores weren't incentivized to get draft boxes at all, and to start having to do so again doesn't really make sense for them. And so if they get them, they can't guarantee that they'll go off the shelves, because that's split for the collectors. People are buying that other stuff. So, and for the constructed players, sometimes it's just better to buy the single and not even buy a draft box or play the draft with your friends.
And the point too, that the stores weren't ordering draft booster boxes because distributors didn't want to carry them, because the majority of stores didn't want them because they were unsellable.
So you can't even get them from anywhere. Yeah. Exactly. And so this was a compound set of factors that just, a big amalgam that crushed limited a little bit, draft in particular. Sealed still is a little bit healthier in terms of like periodically when the pre-releases come around. But this is going to impact sealed even worse. So we'll talk about that in a second.
Yes, please.
Those are the factors. I do want to acknowledge that the pandemic played a huge role in doing this, but I also want to acknowledge that the introduction of the set booster was an actual thing that Wizards did that had a huge impact on draft boosters. And I don't think that they do enough to acknowledge that in the current article that Maro wrote. And so the big impetus for this change to play boosters is, by Maro's own admission, and we have a little quote for you. It is that Limited was literally in danger of dying. He says, right, if we didn't do anything, draft boosters were going away. This whole change was to save drafting and other limited formats, which indicates that they were in danger of not being supported anymore by Wizards. And he later said on the 16th, later that day, he said, to clarify something I said earlier today, we do a lot of future forecasting. Had trends continued the way they were going, we believe the draft boosters, were, anyway, in danger of going away due to market forces. No one in Wizards Hasbro was trying to get rid of limited play. So this is a little, in my opinion, both of these statements are a little disingenuous because they don't acknowledge any of the part of the role that Wizards played in so-called market forces. The set booster is a market force.
Well, it's a competing product that they brought into the marketplace. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I don't believe, I don't know, when I first saw the set booster, you know, I'm a collector, so I was very happy that I could have a better thing of that, but I never wanted the draft boosters to go away. The draft boosters were the heart of Magic, in my opinion. I love draft. It's my favorite format. I also love constructed, but the one thing that I think that limited gets that constructed doesn't always get is a refresher. And unfortunately, that's coming very, very quickly now. It's like refresh. They've gone a refresh rate up. But it gets a refresher very, very frequently, and so it can feel new and different. You get to learn all new mechanics and have a bunch of different synergies and have a neat way of discovering Magic at the latest Magic play. And so set boosters were never something that I was doing any more than collecting with. And I would have been a lot more upset with their invention had I realized that they would play this role.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was not a fan. So very quickly, let's go over the difference. So we already went through, Hamhawks was kind enough to lead us through what's actually going to be in each of the play boosters, and you can see there. But what I want to just point out, and this is listed in the article, the differences from draft boosters. Okay, so number one, you have a potential to open up 4 rare or mythic rare cards. 4. Okay.
That's a lot. Yep.
What does that mean for? Let's just go right away. What does that mean for draft? Because that you had the potential to open up 2 maximum ever, and it was rare because one would be a foil and one would be regular, right? A mythic and a rare, or 2 mythics or 2 rares, right? And so why is this different? 4 of them up to. Now that's going to be extremely rare. Okay, sure. But up to 4. So 3 is less rare. Right. So, and 2 is even less rare. You're almost always going to get 2 in theory, right? Not almost. I don't know the exact. People have done the math.
Right.
But let's talk about what that means. So, as constructed players, you're used to playing with lots of rares.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Primarily rares, in fact. You know, when we get the common or uncommon that is playable, it feels really nice.
Yeah, it feels really nice,
it's a fun
right?
novelty.
Like there's an occasion where you're just like, oh, I get to play with this little thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is doing something. Look, a cauldron familiar.
yeah, called it for me, exactly. Or you're like, holy cow,
like
Tolarian Terror,
right?
common.
Yeah.
It's playable mono blue, crazy. And
So in as a limited drafter, there are rares that I'll never see usually in a format, right? There's no matter how much I draft, right? Maybe I'll see like one mythic once, right? Or I'll never get to play with it because it's rare to open, right? And there's like one rare per. So it's always nice to have that feeling of like, oh, I finally get to play with this card.
Sure.
It's not it's not about the rares in limited always. You can build around rares, but it's about finding the synergies amongst the commons and uncommons and what you can do to prop up your deck. And yeah, maybe you have a bomb, cool. But the main thing in limited is navigating the game via synergies, via a well-built deck that is curving out and or respecting your opponent's deck by including removal or things like that, interaction, and that's the main part. And the cards tend to be less strong than constructed, of course, right? Because you're playing with commons and uncommons. And so that's the magic of limited, so to speak, is that you are working with less powerful, but much more, which makes you have to think a lot too. You have to think a lot in constructed, but you also have to think a lot in limited because you're working with making optimization, right? In a different kind of optimization than this. You're working with optimization at the lowest level, right?
Oh, 100%.
Like, I have to eke out every little bit of advantage out of this 1/1 for 1, right?
Well, to illustrate that point, the detail that I always find amazing is how much the word flying is worth in a draft as compared to constructed. Holy cow.
Yes.
You know, like a 2/1 flyer for 3 in a lot of limited environments is fantastic. You know, that is excellent. In constructed, absolutely not. That's ridiculous. Why would you play a 1 toughness creature for 3?
Your value changes. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not even to mention in how they design the sets for the mechanics around certain cards specifically to synergize with each other in draft.
Yes,
right? Between
in draft,
and
exactly.
uncommons. Put more rare in the boosters don't let you highlight those mechanics you put in those commons and uncommons.
Exactly. So more rare in the boosters. More rares in the boosters. You got it. So more rares in the boosters mean, especially with power creep, and let me explain really quickly what I mean by that. The cards are getting more powerful. You're getting more so-called bang for your buck. For every mana you spend, you're getting more power, more stats, more abilities, more triggers, and things like that.
Yep.
So when that happens, what that can mean is that the rares themselves are game-winning bombs, and we have a lot more of those now than we used to. And while I understand Wizards' stated, reason for having a game-winning bomb or so, meaning that newer players can actually take games from more experienced players, it shakes it up a little bit. That reasoning doesn't really work anymore when the game that you've navigated so carefully to incremental advantage to finally navigate to a place where they are in deep doo-doo. And they top deck something that just reads I win the game. That game didn't matter. It's such a letdown. And so the more cards you have like that, the worse the gameplay experience is to me. That is my opinion. Some people love having these crazy haymakers. Like Dread Feast Demon, and
I thought Crimson Vow might come up in this conversation.
Aberrock Caretaker.
Aberrock Caretaker, Toxrill, the corrosive, one of my favorites.
From Mom, right? Like Sunfall, or was it Sunfall?
Sunfall's one of them. There's also
The
Farewell,
that left a creature, but like that left an artifact behind that gets rid of a creature.
Sunfall and White Sun's Twilight both did.
It had like a 72% win rate. Like,
of course it did.
It's not okay and limited to have that because that negates all gameplay. And so that's my my preference is for really cool navigated games. Like actually really thinking through the lines, optimizing what you can and cannot do with the resources at your disposal.
Yeah.
So, and so more bombs makes that harder. Now, if you have 4 rares in a pack or 3, right? Even 2 gets a little rough. We've had
Mhm.
2 for a while to some degree
Mhm.
now. We had the perhaps the opportunity for 2 for a while. We've had, Strixhaven had, potential 2 rares with the archives, right? The
Mhm.
special cards tend to have the possibility of rares, a second rare. And we always had the opportunity to get a foil.
Mhm.
And so, but like, I think the best illustrator. I know some people love this set, but my most abhorred set recently was Mom. I hated March of the
Hmm.
Machines because it literally had so many winning bombs. Every card was
Yeah.
in the rare slot or mythic slot was like that
So
that
strong.
the special slot. Sorry, not rare and mythic slot, but
Yeah, the
the special
multiversal
slots
legends, I think it was called. Yeah, yeah.
was so brutal because you could, like I said, you could have these wonderful synergies with the commons and uncommons, right?
Mhm.
And then somebody played Italian, and you're like, okay, and scene.
Or breach the
Reach the
multiverse.
Yep, or
multiverse.
bridge. Yep.
Exactly. There were so many, and Sunfall, of course.
Yeah.
But so that's not the gameplay that I prefer. Now, I understand that some people are like, it's more like Cube, and I'm like, so play Cube. I love Cube too, right?
That's
This
what
is
Yeah,
Cube's
not what I
for.
want for
Exactly. Yeah.
limited. For the set limited stuff, right? For the within a set, right?
Yeah,
I
I
love
would
Cube.
say I was one of those players. Like I loved Mom draft, so I guess to the counterpoint, because I viewed it as a cube within a regular draft set. I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this is cool." I didn't even relate that to back to Strixhaven, right? When they did it with the other special slots. So for that reason, I liked Mom because my running joke was I could always put the multiverse legends in my deck. Let me just draft all the multiverse legends. Like this has to be good, right?
That's all
Let's
you
say I don't
need.
like a
Yeah.
set at all. Let's just draft all the
Exactly. Let me
multiverse
just put
legends.
these bombs in. We'll be fine. Everything will be
And
fine as long as they don't play an extra bomb
right, but
because
then
they
they did
might
it
have
again with
4
Eldraine,
or
like
5.
right
Yeah,
after with Eldraine. And granted, I don't think Eldraine's cards are as powerful in that
they're
bonus
not.
slot.
No.
I
But
like Eldraine much better.
Hmm.
yes, me too. But understanding now in all of these future sets, they're going to continue this, right? So it's coming up with Ixalan. You're going to actually have 2 bonus slots in Ixalan, not one, right? You get the special guest slot plus the I don't know what it's called in Ixalan, but it's their version of Enchanted Tales. So there are 2 different special slots. So 2 mini
Hmm.
cubes within your draft set. And me being a lover of limited, though I'm not nearly as good or talented as Headology here,
Oh, I don't know about that.
and I love to draft.
Don't sell yourself short.
Um,
Yeah.
at this point, I'm not even drafting the set that's coming out anymore,
Hmm.
and moving over to this play booster. That's sort of this merge between draft and set booster. Who knows? I mean, I can open a Sword of Feast and Famine out of the list.
Yeah.
There's no way that my commons and uncommons can compete with that
No, and
card.
that was the
Of course
problem with
not.
Mom. Part of
Yeah,
the problem with Mom wasn't just the bombs. It was the fact that the commons and uncommons were so much of a power dive from
yep,
there. Right? You couldn't take on any of the bombs with your commons and uncommons. You had to have opened a bomb yourself.
yeah,
So,
and a
Hmm.
lot of those cards had to deal with, trying to attack battles, and the Multiverse Legends had nothing to do with battles. So here I am trying to fight this new card type, and here my opponent's just like, nah, I'm gonna put in Elish Norn Original, 7 mana, your board's dead. Like, how do
Neat.
I kill that?
Right. Yeah.
enjoy. Yeah. It basically, you just like, okay, I'll watch you play Magic now,
Hmm.
it's
Right?
cool. Exactly. There are things that just shut down an entire deck, including its synergies from the limited format. So you didn't get to
Hmm.
experience what the limited format was all about. So that's part of it. So having 4, potentially up to 4 rares in this one pack, people are saying, okay, this is going to be at least a little bit better for draft because those rares will get spread out. You get to pass along the pack. But in stores, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work. There's going to be a lot more of the negotiation of, can I buy another pack if your pack is like stacked with like $100 worth of rares?
Hmm.
There's going to be a lot more of that negotiation, I think. But additionally, they say that over the draft it'll be spread out because you'll get one, the next one will get one, and so on and so forth. But then sealed, what does that look like?
Yeah.
There
So
is statistically, it is very, 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 very improbable. Like you're more likely to like die from something. I forget what the stats were. I read a cool stat about this.
I think I know the one you're talking about. Where it was more likely to be struck by. No, it's more likely to win the lottery twice in a row.
Yeah.
Like, win the jackpot lottery twice.
Then to get the pool of 24 rares and mythics in your 6-pack sealed. Yes, exactly. And so so that's the idea, is that like, yeah, you're not going to get 24, but you could have 15.
That's still bad.
What?
Could very easily just get 12, get 2 per pack.
Yeah, and so that sealed format is still not going to do that. Yeah, exactly. That sealed is not going to do that synergy thing either. It's still not going to be that limited format play to some degree. It's going to be a rare format play. And so you're going to get to the end, like you knew when you got to the 7 wins in Mom Best of 1 that you were going to hit a Sunfall deck. Like you just knew, or an Atali deck. You knew once you got to a certain point that this person has the bombs. And so for the most part, and it's just a question of do they draw them, you know? And so that's why I think this is a really, I mean, so the rares are the number one reason I think this is going to be really awful for limited. Let's talk about the next difference, which is -1 playable card.
Yeah.
From draft boosters. -1 playable card. They got rid of a common for you. Right? It's -3 commons overall, right? To make way for the rares and another uncommon, I think, or something like that. I forget.
They have the wild card slot, which could be all kinds of stuff.
It's the wild card slot, which could be, yeah. So, but -1 playable card overall. And they said, in the actual article, Maro said, one of the reasons we went down in commons and set boosters was addressing a common complaint from players that there were too many cards that didn't get used. Now, what that says to me, that's a very odd way of phrasing that, because what that says to me is we didn't design usable cards, so players didn't play them. There's an easy solution for that. Design playable cards. Right? If no one's running your, there was actually an uncommon in Neo that was never run. It was the one with the beautiful rays on it. Discover something, I forget, but it's gorgeous, and it never touched a deck. Let me see if I can find it. No, I'll find it later. But yeah, it was gorgeous.
Well, with these forgettable commons and uncommons that people pass all the time.
Yeah, and it's just completely, they're never gonna see your deck. They're not even gonna be your 23rd playable, right? Or 24th if you're running 16 lands. So pardon me. So the idea that they would say, oh, the complaint from players is there were too many cards that didn't get used, so we'll give you fewer cards, doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Nope.
Right? Design the set and design the cards and the packs such that they can be played, so that they're all playable, such that something isn't just literally going in the trash. Like just in a landfill somewhere.
Right. So
that doesn't make any sense to me. I think that claim is very, very odd. And I don't, a lot of this seems to be like, it's not us, right?
Right.
This pushback on taking responsibility for design and development, including the release of the set booster, and including you didn't like your comment. You're one common in the set. So I get that, it has been 15 cards since the dawn of time, right? And then they found that 14 did the best job of giving them the play experience they wanted. They are more experienced in game design than I am. They've done research. I do have to give them credit that maybe this is going to be amazing. Who knows? My experience so far has not led me to believe that will be the case. And they're not convincing me by using arguments like this. And so I am terrified of what this limited experience is going to become. And I was not terrified of losing limited until now. I do note that although they have like limited at the Pro Tour and limited at their, what passes for GPs now, and things like that, it's not as supported. Like they don't support it at your local game store very well. And if they really wanted to support limited, my guess would be that reverting to the draft booster, if you really want to add a rare, okay, but 4, so revert to the draft booster and support limited at your local game store. The game stores are suffering already with the increase in the prices, and this is going to put another product on the shelf that's even more expensive than the set boosters were, because it contains the number of packs necessary to draft, and the set boosters didn't. They contained fewer. So you've done away with 2 things that were less expensive to put a more expensive thing on the shelf for limited players and players in general.
Yep.
And I don't, so my final point here is just, I don't understand this decision. It doesn't make logical sense to me. I am not a developer, so maybe I'm missing something, a lot of things. But it scares the bejesus out of me to this limited. I'm so afraid of what this will do to limited.
Yeah, and to your point about the price, right? And I think that was, something that I saw all over like Magic Twitter and like concerns, and so much so to where Wizards went on and did a live stream to address some of these right away, because they were getting, I don't know if they had it planned beforehand, but they were just getting so much backlash that you saw, okay, announcement, we're going to go live on Twitch and we're going to explain some of this stuff. And of course, Mark Rosewater had to talk about a couple of the things that he tweeted that were unclear. So PR, fix it up, make it clean, sort of response back. And, it is what it is. But the price point, whether this booster is the same price as a set booster or greater, already puts people higher price than they were paying for these products, like regardless, right? Because you took away the $4 option, you're forcing everybody to pay the $5 option, and they actually said on the stream it's just a couple dollars more. So let me explain it from this point of view, right? A pre-release at my LGS.
Oh my god!
So I play at the comic book store. Go check them out, right? Our pre-releases are always like priced to the player, like how much the store pays. You pay a couple dollars more for prizes, right? Like that's how it's always been. So my pre-release typically costs me $30 to play in. Okay, as it is now for pre-release kit, I get 6 draft boosters. I get my promo card. Even if I lose every match in my 3 round, I still end up getting a set booster as a prize. So all of my money is going into the product I'm getting, plus at least that pack, right?
Yeah,
and I
can
can
win
win up to 3
for everybody, and you might get a better prize. Yeah, exactly.
Right, and it's great. But now when you increase the price and you're making it so I'm getting 6 of this new $5 booster, how much do I got to pay for a pre-release kit? The answer is I'm paying at least $6 more than I was. But the realization is that most LGSs are charging more than $30 for a pre-release. So what if these LGSs start charging $50 for a pre-release? And they're paying $20 more for an increase in price to the LGS plus the prize. Instead of playing 3 pre-releases on a pre-release weekend, $150 out of your pocket, maybe you're down to paying 2. The LGS is making less money if people can play in less events now because of this forced price increase. Because, I mean, let's not hide it. It is a forced price increase, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So, thinking about it from that
appalling.
perspective, and their also answer to that is, well, you can open up to 4 of these rares, which makes the play experience worse, right? So you're going to use the pre-release as a way to incentivize to get new players to play a game at an increased price point and a worse play experience.
Yes.
Now, I suppose we really can't say if it's a worse play experience from a pre-release point of view until it happens, right? With murders at Karlov Manor.
Right.
But we'll figure that out.
Yeah. We have reason to suspect it will be.
Yeah. you know, and to the point, right? It's highly improbable I'm going to open 24 rares in a sealed pool, but it is more probable
Yeah.
that I will open 12, which is double the amount that I would normally get. And
Exactly.
most new players build their decks around the amount of rares that they get, not around synergies,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
think about it from that perspective, and it's less incentivizing them to properly play limited.
Yes. So it's not incentivizing them to learn to play the game at all.
No,
It's
it's how
incentivizing them
many
to like
powerful
just
cards do I have?
clear
Can I play
bombs.
all of these
Yeah. How many
powerful
can I fit in
cards?
a deck and actually expect to cast? And yeah, that's a really, really, really good point. That's the thing is you when they go back to that argument of like new player, you know, winning against a more experienced player, the thing is often yes, there is a lot that skill can make up. Absolutely. You can win to some degree against certain cards.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you have to contend with, the less skill will matter and more the pool will matter.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Um,
and you know the other thing they said on this same stream, right?
I'm
Is
so glad
is
I didn't
is
watch that stream.
is Rosewater actually said it was like towards the end of the stream, and he says I can't talk a lot about it right now, but we are in the process of creating a product that's going to be for newer players to be able to come on and play Magic, and everybody in the chat was like, "That's limited.
That
Why
is
do you have
limited.
to create another product
Are
when
you
you can
recreating
just?"
draft boosters? Like there's something that will take the place of draft booster? Like what?
And
Well, or
it was
well,
so
I think
wild to me.
is it going to
Intro
be
decks? Like
jumpstart?
what?
Oh, is it going to be jumpstart boosters all over again? Because those
Your
were a
whole
dumpster
stated
fire.
purpose for this was to put them to. Oh my god. Oh my
Yeah.
god. To simplify the product. Now you're going to come up with a new product to replace. I don't understand this at all. This makes me
Yeah.
angry. I also am really angry about the it's only $6 more. So consider this. This game costs them next to nothing to produce. Like in terms of the actual product itself. The cardboard that it's printed on, right? It's a special cardboard. It's got special foils, you know, foiling of the like, and the little in the rares they have the little hollow, right?
Yeah.
But so what happens is you pay for the design, you pay for the development, you pay for the artists, right? And those all deserve everything that they make and more, right? But where is the like Wizards? I think is making record profits. So why are you charging your customer base more at this point?
Inflation.
Why are you looking for ways to to take away the cheaper options for them to get into this game?
Because we're all addicted and we'll pay it anyway. That's I mean they're just milking us at this point, and
Yeah.
it's become more brazen as time goes on. Like there were little tweaks and little updates throughout the years that you can write off as like, oh, it's inflation, okay, sure, whatever. This is starting to get ridiculous in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think they're finding every single angle that they can to try to just
It's amazing.
Yeah,
and,
it's
and
nuts.
especially when they mention inflation, that makes me angry too. Just because that statistically, we have like Katie Porter and her whiteboard showing us that inflation is all the result of that inflation is all the result of businesses' greed. Like it's so bad.
Of course it is. Yeah.
And so like. So if they're going to name inflation as like, it's like you're the cause of this. Like you're making record profits and you're raising the price of things. What is going on? And so I don't want players to be priced out of a game that I love.
Right.
And if he's saying he's making an all new product, I'm like, well, leave us the old one. What was wrong with the old one? Yeah, people weren't buying it. So take off your set boosters. Like they don't seem to want to walk back anything. They want to alter things, which is fine. And I've actually, this is the first time I've gotten really upset with a change.
No.
Like I know a lot of people get really reactive and are like, oh my God, I hate this right away. I'll usually give it a chance. But having now experienced, you know, formats which have many rares in the limited situation, and I do feel like I have a little bit of a handle on the gameplay and what I value in the gameplay a lot more. And this is not it. And so so I don't understand why. I'm not sure. Again, like I said, I'm not a game designer, but I don't understand what decision-making process went into this that said, okay, maybe we walk back the set boosters. Maybe we find a way to work with like, and not like this, not like put them together, smash them together and add rares. Like,
Right.
that's not a compromise between draft and set.
Yeah.
And there was somebody who did say that like more rares means that the general pricing of rares will go down, but the pricing of rares, the chase rares are always going to be super pricey, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, the pricing of rares is already at an all-time low because they have so many variants and everybody only wants the purely specialist variant, right?
Oh yeah, no, 100%, and
So
you can absolutely see that the singles market right now. Like, if there is a chase rare of some kind that you want, if you're not picky about what the art looks like, you can find one dirt cheap. Like, I opened a bunch of Innistrad, our most recent trip to Innistrad, both Crimson Vow and Midnight Hunt, and as a result, I have like 6 different variants of Thalia, and I thought, hey, sweet, this is a great playable card. I'm sure these are worth something. Nothing, like bubkiss. I think even the Dracula art is like $1.50. Like, oh great, I'm glad I have this.
Powerful cards. You can pick them for 10 cents. It's great for the game. I love that people can pick up singles cheaply. I get that, but like you're not creating value for the people buying these packs in that case.
No, and if you're going to be
Just
adding
full set in one chase or 2 chase rares, and the specialist of special variants, the like surge foils of the numbered surge foils, right? Like it's okay and sorry, I'm getting way worse.
You're fine. We're all very passionate about this game. That's why we're having this podcast.
Of losing the game that I love, and I get that this is before we've actually had it happen, and I know that try it out, blah blah blah. But like I have some experience that suggests that this is not the way to go, and that makes me very scared for the game that I love, that I want to play, and that I love hanging out with people playing.
Yeah.
And I'll always be able to play Commander, of course, right? That's the thing that we'll be able to, everybody will be able to fall back on to some degree is, you find people who like to play similarly crazy decks to you. And then it doesn't have to be good, but like, and then you do play that. But I love Limited, and I love meeting new people at game stores and playing a draft and looking at what they've decided to try as far as the synergies in the format and learning from their play style. And I don't want it to go away. So that's my main thing. And speaking of, limited refreshing, for example, and, keeping prices down and so on and so forth. Hello, Kat. Haldir says hi. But speaking of all of that, the release of this information. Talk about the release of this information. When did they release this information? Because you're constructed players, so this must have really gone hard for you.
It was lovely. So after Wilds of Eldraine dropped, right now they have a new kind of banned and restricted schedule where they're doing one big change across all formats annually. And then they're giving themselves, I think it's like a 30-day grace period or whatever, after a new set comes out, where they are willing to make emergency changes if something becomes problematic, if they identify an issue. And so they had this scheduled BNR following Wilds of Eldraine. Now, this was positioned as an emergency ban announcement. And so when they released the ban announcement and it led with there will be no changes, I remember thinking like, okay, that makes sense. And then wanting to read through their justification, expecting to see, oh, in these formats, we're aware of these cards, maybe having high play rates, we're considering it for the future. Instead, when you scroll down in that article,
we've listened to your concerns about these cards, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But there wasn't any of that. It was just, by the way, we have a new booster. And it was like, it felt like the most clickbaity bait and switch I have ever seen. It was wild. And it was just, of all the things to talk about, I mean, we've seen incredibly high play rates on a number of different decks and a number of different cards in various formats. I know Pioneer players have been talking about Nykthos and Karn the Great Creator. Some kind of nod to say, hey, we know, like, would have been nice. And instead, it was just, by the way, we're revamping our products next year. Why is that the avenue for this discussion?
It's so interesting. Not that we've talked about this plenty of times here, right, Ham? About potential cards that might get an axe in the constructed formats. And I have said constantly, we don't need any bans in standard. Standard is quite healthy, whether it's on Arena or from the little bit that's coming back in paper, and I'm thank everything for that. But and the format is pretty diverse. Whether you check, Hollywood Pizza's tournaments, or you check the standard leagues and the challenges that are on like Magic Online and stuff. The ladder, just on Arena in general, has been very diverse. I usually don't play against the same deck twice unless it's Esper or a variant of that deck.
But even then, the Esper deck, there are like 3 different variants. They're all over the place.
And they're all different. Yeah.
Yep.
And so when you take a look at that, standard, healthy. Didn't expect anything to be done in standard.
Modern.
But modern and pioneer, I mean, have needed some attention for a little bit. And I was surprised when they did nothing. And I think the first biggest thing we talked about here was doing something about Karn the Great Creator. Remember that conversation many weeks ago? And it was us talking about, okay, well, does this card get axed in modern because of Tron, right? Tron moved to playing Karn the Great Creator. We had the integration of the Lord of the Rings set, which has given us probably one of the most busted cards in Magic, period, in the One Ring, right? So let's not even start that conversation, right?
Orcish Bowmaster.
I mean, we talked about those 2 cards I think for like 3 weeks straight.
It's in that set.
We had thoughts. Yep.
Craziness, right? They even rebalanced this card on Arena to make you pay 1 and tap it to use the ability. So they know it was an issue in Alchemy, which that card was destroying that format until they made some of the balances, right?
So they rotated the format to make it weaker than standard, and the One Ring was in it. What?
Imagine that. And Orcish Bowmasters and Shieldred, like, hello. And so
I too am not a game designer, but come on. Anyway.
we should test some things before we determine if this is acceptable, right?
And I just want to point out in Maro's article, by the way, he says, right, one of the questions he asks and answers, it's called Hypophora. It's a technique. Will the play booster make draft less fun? He says R&D believes it will not, but then there's a little bit, and he says, will there be lessons to learn as we adapt to a new system? Of course, but Magic constantly evolves, so we're pretty good at adapting.
Yes, so let's talk about being constantly good at adapting, but thinking it's acceptable to put a creature into play that thought seizes you on turn 1 or 2 multiple times and makes you not be able to play the game.
Yeah.
We might be scamming a little bit.
Fun. Let's get protection from everything and draw cards and
do all of these things. That's no issue here.
And another thing, it seems that all of these straight to modern sets have had the cards that have like made it sort of unfun to play the formats, whether it's a free spell or not. So obviously the big talk of the town was how has nothing been done against scam, yet the percentages put out by folks like Frank Karsten clearly show an imbalance of metagame, right?
The Rakdos Evoke,
and it's not close. Between that and like the 4-color Omnath deck, like you're talking more than 10 percentage points higher. It gets to a point where, hey, we got to do something here. Like make one incremental change. You want to adapt, ban a card. You've already shown that you have the ability and want to unban cards in the format. They did that with the last announcement with Preordain. That card really hasn't made like the biggest impact out there. And now we have new cards from Standard that are making a dramatic appearance in Modern, like Up the Beanstalk, and showing how playable that card is, and like the Omnath deck with also the 5-mana elementals. So like power creep that we spoke about earlier is very real, right? And this card is causing a nuisance in Standard, but it's not ban worthy, right? I can play my 2-mana Up the Beanstalk and my 1-mana Leyline Binding plus draw a card in the same turn.
Exile any non-land permanent your opponent controls and draw a card for 1 mana. That's fair, right?
And what's
totally fine, no issue.
And what's most interesting is what really fuels that? Them not rotating the format. Right. Because had they gotten rid of the tri-lands and allowed Standard rotate,
yes. I understand people wanting to keep a deck for longer. I get that. You don't want to have to rotate the deck, buy a whole new deck. I absolutely understand that. But if you make that decision, you have to be willing to make the hard cuts and say, okay, this is no longer legal in this format, or it's restricted, or we're going to alter it in some way. because we have that capability now. I am never a fan of like having different cards in paper as versus online because
Right.
people will mess up all the time of like, it doesn't do that. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. Look at this version. Okay.
Right.
But if they're going to go that route, if they're going to say, look, they're not going to rotate, then they have to be willing to make these changes. It says Magic constantly evolves. We're pretty good at adapting. I have been seeing that less these days because I think I hate to say it, but I think in part it may be because those cards were released fairly recently and they don't want to ban something that people just got. Like the Bowmasters and the One Ring. I get that. Like, and I get that Lord of the Rings collector boosters are still being sold. So I get that they want to make money. So they don't want like the money cards from that set to stop to be banned and then have those boosters collector booster boxes languishing on store shelves.
And don't forget,
or in Amazon warehouses.
Of course.
Sorry.
Yes.
So yeah. So I get that, but it's easier and easier to believe that that's what's happening, and I don't like that about Wizards in general. Is I feel like the focus is no longer as much on the community as it used to be.
Well, and I think the interesting point about the bans, the One Ring specifically is a really unique case because a ton of people who know nothing about Magic know about that card. You know, that's the thing because it was
such a big thing.
Biggest, one of the biggest promotions of all time. And so people who don't play Magic, who do not understand how different formats work and don't understand anything, would just hear the phrase like, the One Ring sold for $2 billion or $2 million or whatever, then banned. Like,
yes,
that's
And
a super
don't
clickbaity title
forget-
that I have no doubt
and so I
BuzzFeed
think they
authors
just need
would
to be
be
careful about how they, I think they're releasing sets so quickly now that I worry that they're not being able to. They just don't have the time to be able to spend playtesting enough to see what the community is going to do with it and to see how it interacts with the current meta, and that leads to times like this where they can't actually ban the card for these reasons, but it should be banned.
It should.
And
Yeah.
don't forget though,
and
this
so-
holiday season, you too will be able to purchase more Lord of the Rings cards, new Lord of the Rings cards with new art style One Rings and Orcish Bowmasters, plus additional serialized the One Rings with special art.
They have more serialized One Rings?
It's a special art, the One Ring. Some of the cards come with special art, and they had shown on a panel 100 serialized the One Rings with this new special, I don't know if it's metal art or whatever you determine it to be, but they had revealed that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so and this is in addition, by the way, to the Doctor Who set that just came out. And Ham, tell us about the news from recently.
Yeah, there's even more stuff coming out. So we have even more Universes Beyond. So I believe it was actually like just late last week. They were like, by the way, here's a bunch of Fallout cards. Get super excited for these.
Right? And Doctor Who, literally, the paint hadn't dried on it.
Like, yeah, exactly. Doctor Who is still
the TARDIS.
like brand.
The TARDIS was just like painted blue, and then they're like, whoop, okay, Fallout.
Pretty much, yeah. Like there are people who like probably haven't even received their pre-orders yet for the Doctor Who decks, and now we're supposed to get super jazzed about Fallout. And I got to be honest, there are a couple of cards in that set that look awesome, like the reprint on Wasteland. Yes, please.
All the art is spectacular. I haven't never played Fallout. I know of it, and I've seen people play it, but I've never played it myself. But the art is spectacular, and I don't even know the game. So
yeah, I'm a casual fan of Fallout, and like I played Fallout 3. I played it through a good chunk of New Vegas. But honestly, it never really got its hooks into me. Like, which is funny because I'm a big Bethesda fan. Like, Elder Scrolls, 100% hook into my veins. I can play it all day. But for some reason, Fallout was like, yeah, this is fine. I'm good. But like, I didn't really feel moved to keep going. But the aesthetic of that universe and like the way they're able to capture it in the cards is just really well done. And it got me. And it did the thing that a successful Universes Beyond does, where it gets me kind of excited about this property and maybe about this new product and maybe getting some of these for my commander decks and whatnot. But also, it made me kind of want to replay the games and get back into them, you know? Like, I kind of want to go play some Fallout now, which I didn't before. And so we had a couple of days to look at some of these and get excited about them.
Cards. And then what?
And then just today, which I'm actually kind of glad, we're recording this a little later than we often do, and I'm glad that it lined up this way. Just today on Twitter, Wizards announced that they will be doing a partnership with Marvel for
Assemble! Okay.
for Universes Beyond. The trailer that we haven't seen any of the cards yet. This is just the teaser. But at this point, we have Fallout, we have the Doctor Who stuff, we have Assassin's Creed is going to be coming next year. There's
Marvel.
Final Fantasy, which we're supposed to be excited about. There's now Marvel. There's
Ixalan coming soon.
and
too.
Ixalan, Jurassic Park is coming. It's
Right, like I'm ready for dinos.
Right.
And they're showing me Marvel comic teasers. Like,
Yeah.
and it's great and all, right?
Sure.
Like, the good thing about Universes Beyond is everybody gets to experience, a little bit of what they enjoy into their favorite game that they're playing Magic, or
Totally.
to bring people from those universes into ours,
Magic, yeah.
right?
absolutely.
Great idea. Like, and I'm totally a fan of saying, don't yuck somebody else's yum. Like, we might not all like what they're doing, but in the end of the day, they are Magic cards, right? And I can play them in my commander decks.
Each of
And
them, please?
I've never seen an
That'd be nice.
episode of Doctor Who ever in my life, right? I have no idea what Doctor Who is, but you bet yourself I bought me this Grixis Doctor Who deck
Heck yeah.
to play with because it said something about villains and I want to have some fun. So like, hey, if that's all I got to do to oh, yes, and we got aliens and alien tokens.
All kinds of fun aliens.
And they're
and
adorable, and I'm
apparently,
wondering if they're
Cyberman,
evil
I
and
don't know.
multiply. Like
I gotta say, actually, I watched a little bit. I watched a little bit of the 9th and 10th Doctor, and the adipose offspring is flavorfully. They nailed it. It's 100%.
Awesome. Yeah, no. I mean, from everybody who's fans of these actual worlds and world building, they're doing a bang up job with the actual cards and the way they've implemented the mechanics, etc. It's just so cool, and of course the art. But yeah. But can I have time to appreciate these new worlds and these new cards, please? Just give me a little bit of time.
Right.
And I can't. I have no idea whether they tested these things in the meta.
Yeah. Well, that's the great thing about Commander. What meta? Go nuts. It's all just throw it out there. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Go ahead.
Meanwhile, all of these are going into Legacy.
Let
and
the Commander
Vintage.
Rules Committee handle it.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. Yeah, exactly.
So
there's just
it's
so
all
much
great.
coming at you so quickly.
much.
It's really hard to process and actually sort of figure out what you want to do. There's just, and I get that not all products for me. I don't have to do all of it, but I really do want to. I mean, especially for the Universes Beyond, if I'm not familiar with the particular universe, I'd love to get into it, have time to get into it, explore it with the fans that are going to watch me play with those cards.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just want some time. Slow it down. Just slow it
Yeah.
down.
And it's interesting because they did ask on one of the recent surveys, they do the surveys from time to time, or just a general survey. It's not even after the end of a set. And one of the questions they asked simply was, do you think we're releasing products too fast? And I don't really know who answered no to that question. But, I know that was like a couple sets ago now, and you think that they would slow it down. Now,
Did they get a good response that said yes?
There's no way that they didn't, right? But we've had so much time since then, and granted, Magic sets are designed years in advance, so we get that. But heck, they did a whole stream of what we're expecting through 2025, and Marvel wasn't even on that list. So where does that land? There wasn't even a unannounced coming special set between that announcement. So it's they might make it its own standalone thing, kind of like Warhammer was, maybe, where it's only Commander product, and that's totally fine too. And not for nothing, but I am a fan of the Commander deck plus collector booster thing. I think that's fantastic the way they did it with Doctor Who.
I like that too.
If the collectors want special surge foils of their products, I like that better than printing all surge foil decks like they did with Warhammer, by the way.
Yeah.
So that way you don't have a $200 Commander deck or whatever. But at least make the announcement, because now you have a bunch of players that are hyped, and believe me, I'm hyped to see some of my Marvel comic characters on my Magic cards.
100%.
Yeah, I mean,
but I don't
Scarlet
know
Witch
when it's
has
coming.
got to ride in on Brushwag.
I don't know when it's coming.
Yes. I didn't know I needed that until you said it, but now that you said it,
I have to see it.
Well, and we could Marvel is one of those properties where, like, I honestly do kind of want to talk about, like, the color philosophy around different characters and who aligns with what, because that's, like, a fun thought experiment. Obviously, we don't have time today, but, like, you know, it's a property that could map to Magic in a very cool, unique way. And it's a neat idea, but at this point, who has time to get hyped about another thing?
Yes. Bam, it's hitting me every day. Like, I've opened Magic Twitter and I'm like, oh, regret. I don't have the energy to get excited about that right now.
Well, and I'll start my stream in the morning, and like by the end of the stream, I'm having people going in, "Hey, what are your thoughts on the new thing?" What? Like that's the thing. Like I've been streaming. I haven't. What?
I'm supposed to be in the know. I have no idea. Yeah.
Yeah. As an enfranchised player who spends all of his time looking at Magic stuff, we're getting to a point where products are coming out so fast. I genuinely there are still Warhammer cards to this day that I have seen for the first time across the table for me, and I have no clue what they do. Like. And that's only going to continue. Like, that's absolutely going to keep happening. And that's nuts, because I spend my whole days looking at Magic cards. Like, how do I not know what this... If I don't know what this is...
Yeah.
So
anyway, y'all, we are just a few weeks away from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan release. And supposedly, throughout this week, we're starting to get spoilers that we haven't seen already, right?
Indeed.
And so that means early access, or the streamer event, should be coming up in at least 2 weeks, right?
I believe it's something like that, yes.
So something like that.
It's coming up.
Yeah, that's supposed to focus, I would hope, on standard and limited. So, you know, any thoughts or hype or expectations for Ixalan besides new Big Galta?
Dinos.
Yeah?
That Galta gets to go into my my 5-color dinosaur, my Naya dinosaur jank deck, and it doesn't get to go anywhere else. There's no other purpose for that card.
Right.
If it's not bringing dinosaurs into play, if it's bringing some like crazy Eldrazi and things like that, ignore it. No.
Okay.
I'm gonna build around this at my commander table is you can use this to put dinosaurs into play and no other creatures unless they're like literally aiding dinosaurs, like the ones that like give you mana when you have and get bigger when you control a dinosaur, or give dinosaurs haste.
Well, let me introduce you to a card called Bramble Elemental with Fetch Quest that lets you get Galta and put all of the other creatures from your hand onto the battlefield. Now, whether or not you choose for them to be dinos is your business.
I mean, absolutely. I'm looking forward.
Fine. You can do that. That's
you can totally do that, right?
You bring dinos in.
I'm looking forward to bringing in Galta alongside Imodane's Recruiter and just giving everything haste. Like, I think that's going to be a ton of fun.
That's fine.
That's happening in Standard.
No, don't cheat Eldrazi's into play with this. Don't make me sad.
Yeah. I love it because people are like, oh, but you can cheat in whatever. It's like, you can cheat in stuff in a million different ways. Why does it have to be this? Come on, let the dinos have their time.
Exactly.
Yeah, I respect it. I do. Yep. I really do. Yep. I just want to say, as far as the Lost Caverns coming up, I just need to say that hype finds a way.
That's it. Yeah, can we talk about the universe beyond Jurassic Park?
It's going to be in the boosters. Yep. Anyway, yeah, it's everywhere.
I'm excited for that, yeah.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park is awesome.
Oh, it's great. But yeah, so this has been an awesome conversation. Headology, thank you so much for joining us. I hope this is...
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it was a wonderful first go-around. Hopefully it is not the last. And yes, thank you so much. We definitely appreciate it.
Thank you both for your wisdom. There's some really, really good points that you made that I had not thought of, and I was really... those were enlightening, and thank you for sharing your experience of the stores, and as constructive players, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay. And also, I do think that they're losing touch with what people can afford. I think that was a really tone deaf comment about it being only $6 more. I think that's
I think frightening.
That should be acknowledged very seriously here at the end. Is that that's not what I think this game should be. The mentality I think this game should have.
Yeah.
So,
but accessibility is key, and that's flies in the face of that. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yes.
Well,
so, folks out there. Yeah, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. So, folks out there, if you want to become part of the conversation, if you have questions for us or feedback, topics you'd like us to discuss in future episodes that maybe aren't like time specific, we focus on the news, but we're open to talk about whatever. Hit us up. We love Magic. We know you love Magic if you've made it to the end of this episode. Check us out on the MagicJank Discord. There is a link in the description wherever that you are watching or listening to this. So definitely hop in there. We have a channel for podcast questions. We would love to chat with you. You can also tweet at us at MagicJank over on the Twitters. Yes, I'm still calling it Twitter. I'm sorry. The name is just so much catchier than
Still
X.
Twitter.
It's still Twitter. It's still Twitter. Twitter.com gets you there. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter until they change that. In any event. So before we go, Headology, could you tell folks where they can find you and what they can expect to find when they get there?
Well, I stream on Twitch whenever I possibly can. I'll be there tonight doing a tournament, but not tonight when this is published.
Yeah, no. There will have been a tournament. It was great.
Whenever I can, most days of the week, when I'm not ill and a potato. And I also have a YouTube channel on which I throw box openings and drafts and some tournaments and things like that. And I'm hoping to get it going as well. So it'll be really fun. Yay!
Love it. And links to that in the description as well. And Carlo, how about you, my friend?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitch or Instagram or Twitter or Threads or TikTok, all at the same handle, cfavretto_jr. Different content sort of on different platforms, I guess. But streaming standard most of the time. Sometimes I get to play in Peeps and Keeps draft and stuff like this on Mondays. Over on Twitch, you can find me there. I do like pack openings and also some cringe videos on TikTok in case you're interested in any of that nonsense. You could find me over there, but all that in the link tree below.
And Ham, where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me primarily on Twitch, twitch.tv/hamhawks42. That is where I am streaming incredibly long hours that allow me to procrastinate from posting to my YouTube channel, which is also named hamhawks42. You can find stuff over there when I get to it. I'm also on Instagram. Occasionally, I throw thoughts out there because I have a every now and then I'm like, hey, I should record a video on such and such. It's like, that's really like a 30-second observation. Let's just post that to Instagram. And it works out pretty well, I think. I'm learning how to do the social media thing. I'm figuring it out slowly. But
yeah,
anyway,
we boomers are working on it.
it takes a minute. It does. Yeah. Like when I first started streaming, we were like, where's your Discord? What's a Discord? It was like, anyway.
Yeah, they're like, you should do TikTok. And I was like, I knew what TikTok was, but I was like, those people are crazy and amazing, and I don't know that I have anything as hilarious as they have. So
that's fair.
It was great.
Yeah.
I still don't have a TikTok. I'm working on that.
I have a TikTok account. I've posted absolutely nothing to it. So
Me
yeah,
too.
mad props.
Yes.
Mad props to everybody out there who can make that happen. Well done, everybody. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in.
We'll collaborate on something. That's what we'll do.
What's that?
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Magic
let's
Jank
go.
collaboration. It'll be good.
I love it. One of those duets where like, I would like lay down a beat, then you'd like rap over it or something. Is that that's how we TikTok, right?
I think my rapping is worse than my singing, and that is
if you
damning with yeah.
and if you think I could lay down a beat, you're sorely mistaken. Yeah, I was
like I can't sing, let alone rap.
Oh my goodness. All right. But thank you, everybody, for making it to the end of this episode of the MagicJank podcast. We definitely appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, 5-star review, and whatever podcast app of choice you have out there. Engagement all helps. We appreciate it. So thank you so much. And we will catch you on the next one. Later, everybody.